the early days when he was talking about the metaverse is this is yet another platform, which is yet another way to give up data. Now, on Facebook now and Instagram, we give up our data, but we don't have to pay anything. We just give up our data. If you want one of these headsets, you pay $1,500 for the privilege of giving up more of your data.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, October 14th installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in the Valley. My name is Mike Malone, and I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman, technology reporter for NBC Bay Area. He's actually at NBC Bay Area right now. Our producer is Jordan Henderson. Our East Coast correspondent is Bob Grove. And our host, as always, is the Silicon Valley Business Journal. Okay, Scott, so you said something's going to happen with the Elizabeth Holmes trial on Monday.
That is what we hear, yes. So remember, her sentencing has been put off already a couple of times, and it was recently put off a third time. It was supposed to be Monday, October 17th, but then Adam Rosendorf, the former lab director, visited her house in a weird visit. He insists he doesn't want to take back any of his testimony. He insists it was all true.
It wasn't a mea culpa.
Exactly. And yet it was enough to convince the judge to allow for one more hearing pre-sentencing. This will be her defense team asking for a new trial, and it will likely be the judge denying that. But that's going to happen on Monday, the 17th. So as you're listening to this, check my Twitter. It may already have happened. We'll see. I'll be there. We just also got a new sentencing date of November 18th. So assuming she does not get a new trial on October 17th, she will be sentenced on November 18th.
Happy Halloween. I mean, Thanksgiving. Whoops. We haven't got to Halloween.
Post-Thanksgiving. Yeah, I mean, post-Halloween, before Thanksgiving, right.
Yeah, but there may not be Halloween at the Holmes home this year.
We'll see.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on all this? Has anything changed? Do you really think the judge is going to allow a new trial, especially if the guy who showed up on her doorstep and apologized has not said that isn't for the record, that isn't my testimony, I stand by what I said?
Right. I mean, as soon as it happened, you could, hear the prosecutors scrambling. And sure enough, they did get Adam Rosendorf to sign something saying, I stand by everything. This was a criminal act, all that stuff. So he has not recanted anything. And it was just an odd visit that, as I've learned in covering these trials, there are just certain things you don't do. If you're a reporter, you don't sit in the jury box. You don't have your cell phone on. I mean, these are just things out of respect for the legal process. And if you're, let's face it, the chief witness and even a source for the reporter that brings down a defendant, you don't show up at her house, even if you feel sort of bad. You just wait for the process to play out. And this has put a monkey wrench in. If I were, I am a Santa Clara County taxpayer, I'd be angry at this because it stretched things out. If I were someone who, had a hand in losing money with an investment or in getting a wrong result from a Theranos test, I'd be angry because this plays this, that much further out until there's any resolution. And not to say what the sentence should be. That's not my, my business or my job. But this has definitely been drawn out further than it needed to. And that is because of that really odd home visit. That
act of contrition, which doesn't seem to be an act of contrition. I mean, is he hearing out there in the street, oh, you're a bad guy because you sent her down, up the river? I mean, I don't know. Why was he there?
Right. He has said, although I don't recant any testimony, I felt bad in having a hand at sending a young mother, a smart person, perhaps to prison. And okay, I guess that's the burden of a witness in a trial, that maybe your testimony will be part of a verdict. But that's how the justice system works.
Her PR plan for this worked as well on him.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand how, after doing all this, you wouldn't wait for some sort of finish and then say, hey, Elizabeth, for old time's sake, before you go to prison, let's have a coffee and I can maybe smooth things over. But the fact is, the testimony happened, the damage was done. And so I don't think we're going to get another trial. And I'm not just saying that because, I don't want to spend another 6 months in court. I really don't think that there will be enough here to change the judge's mind. And again, we laugh at how long this case took, but it took that long because the judge was very, very meticulous and methodical. And I say to his credit.
Yeah, and he's got legal paper in his hand saying, "I still stand by my testimony." So
Right.
while the turkey's in the oven at the Budman house, you're going to be at the courthouse for the sentencing, presumably.
So presumably, if all goes as now planned, that would be November 18th, which is, I believe, a Friday. And I mean, that's what a lot of people have been waiting to find out is how long will Elizabeth Holmes spend in prison? Sunny Balwani's hearing, sentencing date, is also right around that same day. So that's going to be a big week for Theranos and, a lot of attention on that company. Balwani, by the way, tried to get a new trial as well because of the Adam Rosendorf home visit. He was denied.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, so he didn't even get to show up next week to find out. They said, no, you have nothing to do with this.
Okay.
You went 0 for 12. You're going to get sentenced to some time later. And that's, again, I can't imagine something like that even peeling over to another trial. Remember, this was a separate trial.
It's interesting the reaction out there, and it seems to be almost gender oriented. The lady who cuts my hair listens to this podcast, and she said she's going down, and I hope she goes down for at least 2 years. Maybe she should go for 20 years. And I hear that from women over and over again, that she behaved badly, she broke the law, she needs to go down. Men seem to be a lot more flexible on this. Yeah, but she's got a baby, have her get, suspended sentence or whatever, and have her do community service. It's really interesting. Are you seeing the same thing?
I think to a lesser effect on the men. I think a lot of people are saying she broke the law and he broke the law. They should spend some time in prison. But you're right. There is a special anger that I've heard when interviewing female CEOs and female venture capitalists who say, here's someone who had a good thing going, got a lot of funding, and then really knowingly lied about it. And in an area where you don't see nearly enough female CEOs, and
They
only
got me
two.
thinking, I worked this hard to get this far.
Right.
And now everyone's looking at me wondering, is she another, Elizabeth Holmes?
Exactly, which is very unfair, but you just can't escape that, they say. And, the female VCs, I mean, we're talking 2% of VC funding that goes to female founded companies. So female VCs feel a very important role too in being inclusive and getting more money and attention on female led companies. And again, right, this should not paint everybody with a bad brush, but there is some fallout. Some female CEOs have told me, especially in the biotech, medical tech area, they've had trouble raising money, and it all points back to Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos.
Well, they're actually getting more scrutiny. They're getting more due diligence because
Yes.
of the trial.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll see soon enough. Netflix is about to get Neilson ratings. They've announced they're going to start that after the first of the year. Do they really want that? First of all, they really want to know that, or the public to know that. Secondly, it's because, as we've announced before, they're going to add advertising. You're going to be able to opt into advertising-based programming on Netflix, and it's going to be what, $6.99 a month, and that launches next month.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is it going to work?
I mean, everybody else does it, and I don't mean to say that's why Netflix should do it, but Netflix has been a leader. They were really first out of the gate in a lot of ways, but they've struggled while Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus, Hulu, Disney Plus have really, really gained a lot of subscribers, and they've done it largely on ad-supported measures. And so I think Netflix at least wants to join that. It's interesting that you mentioned the numbers and the Nielsen ratings. One thing that advertising will do is show Netflix which shows make the most money.
Right.
And as far as the Nielsen ratings, I'm interested in that because as someone who covers this area, we've been reliant on Netflix itself to say, hey, we really did big business with this show, or hey, this is the biggest show we've ever had. And you hear that once in a while, but that's the company telling us. if Nielsen is able to release numbers and say this show did this number and that show did that number, I'm also curious to see, will people really binge and jump into programming that has advertising? I think one of the beauties of binge watching is that you can do it without watching ads. And I say this full disclosure as someone who draws his salary from ad-supported media. But it's a little different on streaming. And it's even more different on Netflix, which never had advertising. So this is really going to shake things up. And I'm so curious to see how it
They
goes.
train their audience not to see commercials for the last
Exactly.
decade.
Exactly.
And now they're going to throw it out there.
I mean, because of Netflix, my children really don't know much about advertising. They haven't had to put up with it all that
They are
much.
blessed. Your daughters are blessed.
Well, when they, when they talk smack about advertising, I point out that that's paying the bills. But it's a whole generation, is what I'm saying, that streamed everything they wanted. They didn't have to stream it in order. They didn't, which show, which Hannah Montana episode, it doesn't matter. Which season of Grey's Anatomy, it doesn't matter. And all of this was done without advertising. And sort of, the generation that's going to be tuning in now won't have as many choices without ads unless you pay more money.
You and Nielsen's going to provide. I just thought of this, but Netflix could say, oh, we had an audience of this size, but Nielsen will be able to say, yeah, but in the key market of 18 to 24, or 24 to 36, this did really poorly, or this did really well. And I'll be interested to see when those empirical data comes out, just exactly who's watching Netflix and which shows.
Right. And, it'll be, I think, an outside source of information instead of relying on the company. And I like that. I'm very interested to see what data comes from both the Nielsen factor, but also the advertising supported factor as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next. We may have another 75 basis point jump from the Federal Reserve in December. A poll of watchers of the Fed, it was originally a chance of 32.5%, but now with the new inflation numbers in, it has jumped to 61.8%. Another big jump. I mean, this is the highest. It's going to be a 40-year high, but inflation's, the core inflation is now 6.6%. They sort of have to do it. But could this have devastating effect on Christmas shopping this year?
It remains to be seen how far the Fed not only will cut, but needs to cut. Economists tell me, hey, these things take time. But, you reference Thursday's numbers, and after the previous cuts, and we talked about how deep they were and how now your credit card debt has gone up, and look at mortgages and the mortgage rates have gone up. And yet, according to Thursday's data, inflation went up, not as fast as it has, but it's still climbing. Prices are still moving higher, quite a bit higher for things like air travel and even gas and food, the core things. And that's in some ways a surprise, unless you believe the economists that say these cuts take time to affect our economy. Now, this is a political decision. Will the Federal Reserve be patient? Will the Biden administration be patient with the Federal Reserve? Or are we going to see another 75 basis point cut to say we need to nip these price hikes in the bud? And I don't know, but 60 whatever percent of that you just cited, that's a pretty high percentage of people who feel we're going to get another pretty steep cut.
Well, at least the Fed is waiting until after the election. Is not going to be the determinant. Inflation probably is going to be the determinant in this election, but to throw that on the fire at election time would be even more, impactful. Let's put it that way. And of course, you change the basis points and you keep trying to fight inflation, there's going to be a lagging effect. It's not going to happen the next day. I mean, so they're trying to catch a moving target and trying to get it to curve back down, but they're trying to shoot ahead this way. And typically the Fed misses. It's almost impossible to do. So it could have just the opposite effect at some point and become deflationary. Then they got to, cut the rate sometime next year or whatever. I mean, it's a sloppy business.
It is. And I think we're at a time of risk. We say in the same sentence, look at our overheated economy, because prices have risen a lot. I'll give you that. But, this week we also saw, on the back of Apple saying they're going to sell fewer iPhone 14s, even more core to the tech business, I would argue, is the warning from Applied Materials this week. That's
Yeah.
the big chip maker, and their warning of a slowdown. AMD warned last week. And so, we really have an economy that's on kind of a treacherous place here, because if we slow down too far, too fast, we have already the warnings. And doesn't that usually lead to significant layoffs? And to me, that's when the economy dips into a serious recession, is when people start to lose their jobs.
And and Applied Materials has always been the canary in the coal mine for the entire electronics industry, because it's at the very apex of the supply chain. I mean, that's the big semiconductor equipment maker. And traditionally, when they have a bad quarter, they're first into the hard times, because they're seeing orders drop from chip companies. And if orders drop from chip companies like AMD or even Intel right now, it eventually goes all the way down the chain and hits social networks, everything else.
Sure.
So have Applied, announce not good numbers. That's terrifying. I
Right.
think I told you that a year and a half ago, but now we're seeing it.
Right. And it's been historically speaking, you hear the warnings and then you see the layoffs. And we're starting to hear a lot of warnings. We've gotten some layoffs. Some of the big companies like Oracle,
Yeah.
some of the pandemic companies, I'll call them, because they grew so much over the last couple of years, like Netflix and certainly Peloton, Coinbase, another one. So we haven't seen widespread layoffs, but we're starting to see slightly different categories: software companies, companies that grew during the pandemic. I think the overarching theme, and Meta's talking about a hiring freeze. Intel is rumored to have layoffs. These tech companies grew so fast over the last 5 to 10 years that now we're seeing perhaps a significant economic slowdown. And wouldn't it make sense that these companies have to trim their sales by a bit?
Yeah, well, they can't predict the future either, so they get exuberant and start hiring anybody that leaves a missed spot on a mirror at a certain point, and then they have to cut back. And this has gone on since 1958 around here, so that doesn't concern me. But an overall recession does, because that flattens the valley for a long time. Okay, have you heard about Project Starline? Did you cover that a year and a half ago? This is Google's. It was announced at the I/O 2021. It was a keynote, and it got lost in the fog of all the wearables and Android announcements and all that. But it's going ahead with this idea of a giant sit-down Zoom machine, essentially. It's kind of hard to believe, but it's a giant sit-down arcade machine. That's how it's being described. It brings 3D video chat to life in a 7 by 7 foot sit-down booth with seeming no regard given to cost, size, or commercialization. It'll have 14 cameras, 16 IR projectors, and will all work to create and capture and track a real-time photorealistic 3D avatar of you.
That you can maybe then use in the Metaverse. How about that?
Yes, well, that's it.
Great.
Does anybody want this product?
I mean, look,
Would you ever use this product? Think about the advantage of Zoom. It's like the old days of TV, where the anchor was sitting there with gym shorts on with a suit up here.
right.
We've all become, busts right here on Zoom. And we get to, be in our pajamas. Or do you really want to go into a box with, a dozen or more cameras aimed at you and sensors picking up every, mole on your face and zit and unshaven whiskers, and you have to dress up for it? Who wants this thing?
I don't know. We've seen these kind of scanners used in stores before to make sure everything from your jeans to your suit fit nicely. This is data we're giving up. This is what the Metaverse wants from us. By the way, also this week, the Metaverse showed off legs for the first time. So congratulations, Mark and company. You can have legs in the virtual world as well as the real world.
We're going to get into Meta in a minute here for the same reason as this.
All I have to say is let's get into the Metaverse, because this is one of those things that just takes everything you have in real life and does a half job at putting you in the fake life, second life, whatever.
Yeah, and I could see a soldier posted in some foreign land wanting to talk to his family and being present. Okay,
Yes.
that's cool. I can see that, but seems kind of a limited market. Are you going to put that 7 by 7 foot thing in a mall?
They have
Didn't
holograms. I mean, this is hologram technology. This exists, and it has existed for a while, and it's never caught on. People
no,
don't want to have a meeting with a hologram.
didn't Cisco have room-sized
Yep.
Zoom
Yep.
machine like 20 years ago?
And it was far more expensive than what we do every day on Zoom. But yes, they did.
And nobody really liked it.
No, they
I
didn't.
did it a few times, and God, it was weird. Okay, well, Google, in its infinite wisdom, seems to be prepared to do this. Their research center. So, good luck to Google. Don't expect to ever see me in one of these things. Okay, I want to get into Meta because their VR headset turns out it's so Facebook. That VR headset looks back at you, and it's gathering biometric data on you. And Google just basically announced it was doing that, even though last year, remember, they were going to get rid of face recognition data of a billion people. Well, they're gathering it again because that's what Facebook does. Zuckerberg really doesn't believe that our information belongs to us. And for his vision of the future for all of us, he's got to gather every bit of information about us and own it.
Right. I mean, I've been saying this since the early days when he was talking about the metaverse, is this is yet another platform, which is yet another way to give up data. Now, on Facebook now and Instagram, we give up our data, but we don't have to pay anything. We just give up our data. If you want one of these headsets, you pay $1,500 for the privilege of giving up more of your data. And yeah, if they think that this is going to be anywhere near as ubiquitous as an iPhone, they're on something. It's really too expensive. This is interesting though. Read the New York Times. Look up the article. Kashmir Hill did a great piece where she spent months in the metaverse, and it's the first of its kind. We've all, me included, have had a chance to test these things out and spend a little bit of time playing a game or setting it on a movie, a meeting. Kashmir Hill does a great job of talking about what it's like, and it felt, as I was reading it, I felt lonely. I can't imagine what she felt, leaving her husband and kids behind to go spend time with people who are in the metaverse all the time. But me just reading her excellent writing, she's a fantastic reporter, it made me feel lonely just reading it.
You want to go to a bar and just meet people.
Well, right. What's wrong with that?
About this. If this thing is looking back at your face, like into your eyeball, and it picks up the early symptoms of macular degeneration, is it obliged to tell you what it sees? Or if it keeps it secret from you, is it denying you crucial information? You have a right to sue them for that.
Well, I don't know. I doubt right away you have a right to sue, because there are many things that can pick up things about us that we don't even understand. And I don't know about that. I just hesitate to say, let's put on, at extreme cost, another device to suck data out of us and put that data, well, I mean, come on, this is Facebook, this is Meta. We don't know anything about where that data is going. Let's admit that. And that was my concern with the metaverse. Not that it doesn't give you another chance to hang out.
You've been worrying about this as long as we've been doing this.
Well, it's another platform, and social media is so important. I get it. It's good, but it's also very dangerous. This is an entirely new platform. And do we want to give an entirely new platform and its advertisers and its companies and its hangers on and its stalkers our data? I just hesitate to do that. And I'm not even in the demo for that sort of thing. It wants teens just like Instagram does.
Of course, because they're malleable and
right.
They don't care. Hasn't the world come to the realization that Mark Zuckerberg wants to monetize us? He doesn't want to make our lives better. He wants to turn us into cash. And he keeps reinforcing that image every time he comes out with something new.
Yes, I think the world is on to that, and cares about it in varying degrees. I think your typical Instagram user doesn't think about that a whole lot.
Or
Um,
chicken.
I just wonder, Instagram, frankly, seems like a walk in the park compared to what the metaverse could be. It just feels vast and lonely. Honestly, I was listening to the Facebook, press conference when it was talking about the new headset, and it would say things like, imagine being in a meeting or a workspace and feeling like you're near other people. And I'm watching this in a newsroom, Michael, where I'm, yes, near actual other people. And, again, the virtual thing we've been doing for years with Zoom, I get it at less than $1,500 a pop. But the audacity of just saying, imagine hanging out in a meeting and feeling like you're with other people. This is skipping a very big reality step. And I just wonder, is it really going to catch on, or is Facebook sinking a ton of money into something that's going to be
And
very new?
driving away talent in the process.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I've played some of the games, and yeah, immersive gaming is cool,
Yeah.
100%. But do we need immersive meetings? Do we need to worry about whether or not we have legs in the metaverse? I don't know. A bar visit in the metaverse to me is a waste of time. And
Old and empty. Yes.
yeah, I just, maybe my mind will be changed, but I've done my own minimal reporting and then reading, some real reporting in the New York Times. It hasn't convinced me yet.
Hey, she suffered, so we don't have to. So
Right.
finally, we got to talk about Elon Musk because I think it's actually a job requirement now in this business that we have to talk about Elon Musk. Um, he did an amazing thing this last week. He started suggesting a resolution of the Ukraine-Russian war, basically giving Russia what it wants, just so they don't get more angry and start throwing nukes around. And now the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany actually used the F bomb on Elon for what he had said. And it looked like Elon was in the midst of a scandal and Ukraine hated him. And then all of a sudden, like yesterday, Ukraine and Elon seem to be making up, talking about we'll use Starlink more and all that. I mean, this is getting nuts. And we've already got the whole Twitter thing, which is still waiting in the wings to get dropped on us. But now Elon's getting involved in geopolitics.
Well, he's
Free
doing
time
it.
to do this stuff? Is he reading, all this stuff while he's looking at Martian, trajectory tables?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say he's getting involved in geopolitics on a Twitter level, which doesn't exactly mean showing up at the UN and talking to world leaders. And granted, Twitter is a powerful platform, especially in the hands of someone with so many followers, especially, by the way, when that man is about to buy the entire thing, apparently. But yeah, it's yet another reason that if I were a Tesla shareholder or employee, I would just say, for goodness sakes, how many ways can one person find to take his eye off the ball?
Yeah, especially when they're not hitting their numbers right now.
Well, right. I mean, it's always a tough time when you're a company that comes out with products and trying to upgrade and sell. I mean, goodness, you're the CEO, and then there's another company, and then there's a third company, and then you might buy the fourth company. And by the way, you're also trying to solve the geopolitical crisis of our time. At some point, um, everything just becomes less effective, and that would be my concern.
There's a theory that that's why he didn't want the Twitter case to go to trial in the Chancery Court, is because he would have to discuss how he runs those companies.
Yeah, from what I understand, there are a lot of reasons.
That could be a shareholder lawsuit
Right.
waiting in the wings.
Yeah, from what I understand, that's just one of the reasons he didn't want to go to court with this, which is maybe why he settled. And I don't know that we'll ever really get to the bottom of what Discovery could have dug up, but maybe he doesn't want us to.
The settlement buries it all forever.
True.
So is he going to buy it? He's still got a couple cards to play, I think, trying to get a better deal. I don't think he can get out of the deal now. I think that door's closed. but is he going to try to get a better deal somehow? What does he have left to play now besides the public opinion?
Yeah, I honestly don't know that he has anything left. I mean, the shareholders voted for 44 billion. He signed a contract for 44 billion. How do you try to convince all those shareholders, especially if you're the board of directors of Twitter, that you're going to actually take money out of their pockets?
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to do. He's clearly overpaying by a ton here, but I think it's largely his own fault. There's so many ways this deal could have been friendlier. And then if the market falls, you're still friends and you can say, hey, it's not worth this. That obviously isn't the way this went down. And now I don't see another way out of it. And yet you have an owner who doesn't want to own a company. You have employees who don't want to work for the owner. But you're dangling a pretty delicious carrot in $54.20 for a share of stock that's worth considerably less.
And I think he's also rationalizing it to himself and to the general public, people that buy stock, that Twitter has the potential to be the basis of the new world, the new internet sitting out there. Yeah, right. Give me another one. But that seems to be a way he's trying to pump the stock as he goes in, that maybe he can make this into a wash instead of just a bloodbath that he's about to get into.
I don't know. There's also talk that he may buy the company and then take it private. So, it becomes less of a shareholder concern. But again, how many people get laid off? How much growth is there in the future? These are real world concerns that people in that building or working out of home are going through right now.
Well, he can always run run all of his companies from that 7x7 foot Google box.
In the metaverse, yes.
In the metaverse. Okay, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Have a great weekend. Scott, have a good broadcast tonight, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.